Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? The first one in, Pablo. Let's go. You're also the first one, I think, to like and retweet as well. Let's go, Pablo. Thanks so much, brother. Hello, Mouse. Scott, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing, Scott? How you been? Good to see you as well. How's things, Scott? Who's tuning in one by one? Let's go. Okay. Let's do intro, disclaimer, and by that time everyone's tuning in for the first spot because a lot of things have happened which we're going to go through on tonight's live. A lot of positive things has happened and is going to be happening going forward. Free Faber, good to see you as well. Evening, how you doing? How you been? Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good, Miles, and you. I'm doing great, Pablo. Good to see you as well. Good evening. Good to see you. How you doing today? Carlos, good to see you as well. How you doing, bro? How you been? Let me just pin the live as well on X. Let's go here. Pin the live. Pin the profile. Pin. Okay, here we go. Pinned. Okay. Make sure this still load. Miles, XRP, XLM, XDC, Scott. Amazing assets going forward, honestly. Hello, Miles. T, good to see you. So how you doing? Miles, let's go. Carlos, how you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Okay, let's do intro, disclaimer, and what we're going to go through on tonight's live. And by that time, everyone's tuned in for the first spot. A lot of things to cover on tonight's live. There's so many things happening. So many things have already happened, which we're going to go through on tonight's live. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF essentially stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much everything you know about regarding the world, completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And also, we do Q&As in this live as well, which means if you ever have any questions, put it outside the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. Now, also, I just want to take a few seconds to say thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who has already tuned in, liked, and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, and if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone who's also dropped a like as well. And for everyone that's also dropped a comment outside the live too, thank you so much. Now, a lot of things have happened, which we're going to go through on tonight's live. Also, apologies about regarding yesterday's situation, but we're back to normal. Now, on tonight's live, episode 359 of the CMF Live, we're going to talk about Jerome Powell. It seems like he's finally came around. He's going to be doing his job, or the pressures regarding Donald Trump or Donald Trump's administration has worked, because we could be expecting a rate cut, which is why the market decided to shoot up all of a sudden. We're going to go through some partnership news announcements today. We're going to go through some ETF announcements today, rate cut news. Obviously, we're going to go through on tonight's live. We're going to go through some international news on tonight's live as well regarding the cryptocurrency space. We're going to go through some regulation news on tonight's live also, which is all positive. We're going to go through some Ripple news, obviously, on tonight's live as well, and a few other ones that everybody should know about. But the first one we're going to cover is Jerome Powell on the subject of rate cuts. It seems like essentially Trump's administration picking on Jerome Powell, or removing one by one members of the Fed and replacing them, or trying to replace them with people that are supportive of Trump's essentially views, is actually working, because Jerome Powell seems like he's caved in for finally. Finally, it seems like he has caved in on that matter. So here it is. Jerome Powell hints at a possible rate cut. Bitcoin and altcoins suddenly shoot up after the Jackson Hole speech Jerome Powell gave. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's recent speech at Jackson Hole, which is his last ever Jackson Hole, sparked renowned speculation about the central bank's policy direction going forward. While Powell essentially did not make any definite promises, he hinted at a potential interest rate cut coming in September. The decision essentially to adjust monetary policies must be taken cautiously because inflation risks are still essentially mounting. His remarks hold impressive implications for the overall economy and the crypto market space, which which is sensitive to liquidity shifts and investor sentiments. He said that because the stability in essentially unemployment and other labor market indicators still exist, the Fed can be essentially careful in considering possible changes to monetary essentially policies, which is, the indications he's giving that we could be seeing that rate cut in September. And let's not forget, in September, it's not just about the rate cuts, which is beautiful to have. We're also going to be getting the Clarity Act happening in September as well. So if we get rate cuts happening in September, the market essentially will shoot up because we haven't had a rate cut for such a long time. Second of all, if we get the Clarity Act passed, then the market has clarity on which way it's going to be heading. Essentially, cryptocurrencies will have clarity, which means institutions, banks, or even governments or government members, you can say government bodies, will feel more comfortable interacting with cryptocurrencies. CFTC will have a better understanding of what they're going to be doing inside the crypto space. SEC will have a better understanding of what they're going to be doing inside the crypto space. That could be the reason why the SEC has been holding off regarding ETFs due to the Clarity Act. So if these two things fall in line in September, we're going to be seeing that shoot that we wanted. Now, he also reminded the audience that the Fed's policy has been actually restrictive for quite some time and acknowledged that the occasion to revisit the outlook later this month, as early as essentially September's meeting, could essentially very well be there. He emphasized that the Fed sees inflation as an important issue, but is also essentially pursuing a dual mandate of both full employment and price stabilities. Notably, Jerome Powell also pointed out that inflation resulting from tariffs, particularly those introduced by essentially President Donald Trump, might not yet be fully reflected in the economic data. Impact of these tariffs will take time to essentially trickle down fully through the channels of supply chains and distribution networks. But regardless of all of that, Jerome Powell has ensured that the Fed remain committed to ensuring that a one-time price increase does not result in essentially long-term inflation challenge. So they're coming around. They're not fully blaming inflation situations on Trump's tariffs policies anymore, which is what Jerome Powell used to say. And two members of the Fed have went against him. While Jerome Powell's speech was mainly centered on inflation and labor market conditions, it affects essentially on the cryptos were also visible. After Jerome Powell's comments, Bitcoin saw a 3.43% increase in the last 24 hours. Is much more higher, a little bit higher now, coming to a price of $116,900 according to this time of this article. Bitcoin essentially, however, had experienced a decrease of 0.88% in the past week, which signals of volatility in the markets. Ethereum's price have also been notably in their essentially 24 hours, climbing about 9.02% to a price of essentially $4,649.11. The price increase deficit of a rise of 2.07% in the past week, which means that the investors are growing in confidence towards the asset. XRP's price also went up 4.92%. It's much more, a little bit higher now over the last 24 hours. There is a suggestion that the Federal Reserve's cautious outlook on interest rates might cause essentially movements for cryptos, with the major ones essentially being Bitcoin and Ethereum. Should essentially the Federal Reserve pursue a rate cut, there will be essentially coincidence of increases in liquidity inside the market space, thus capital flows on risk on assets such as cryptocurrencies. The moment we get rate cuts happening is when we're going to be seeing that liquidity enter inside the market space. And let's not forget, as I said, September is also a clarity month. We're going to get that Clarity Act coming in, which is the biggest thing for the crypto space. Some of the recent crypto price swings were surprisingly reinforced by large liquidation events also. Bitcoin saw liquidations around $108.30 million in the past 24 hours, making it essentially a really volatile asset. For the same time frame, Ethereum's liquidation volume stood at the high of $252.62, essentially $252.62 million. Essentially, such a surge in liquidation implies that a lot of traders had leveraged positions for the price essentially of Ethereum to go higher. Meanwhile, essentially, Solana continued its upward movements with the price increase of 6.86%, but it also saw liquidations totaling around $29.58 million. Although this was essentially comparatively low sum than essentially of Bitcoin and Ethereum towards liquidations, it still essentially assists to the heightened volatility inside the market space. And these liquidation figures essentially provide insights into the risk levels and that traders are navigating as they respond to the shifting market conditions and potential changes in essentially monetary policy movements. So, is Jerome Powell going to be doing a rate cut? Well, according to his last ever Jackson Hole speech, seems like yes. He's going to be doing a rate cut in September. Now, from now until September, Jerome Powell obviously can change his mind. But the hints he's been giving today at the Jackson Hole event, his last ever event, it seems like Jerome Powell wants to end his career on a good note. He wants to end his career on a positive note, unlike Gary Gensler, who just decided to appeal the Ripple case on his last day pretty much and then leave. Seems like Jerome Powell's not going to be as negative as Gary Gensler was towards the crypto space. He actually seems like he's going to be doing one rate cut before he calls it essentially quits, because he knows Trump is not going to be keeping him around. Now, that is all amazing news regarding September. We get that rate cut, we get the Clarity Act. Two things are massively positive. One brings clarity towards the crypto space. One does rate cuts, makes cryptocurrencies a much more, lucrative asset in that moment in time. Beautiful. Philippines is what we're going to talk about next. We're going to go through some international news now, because there's a lot of things happening outside the United States as well that's going to be essentially providing that liquidity towards the market space. So right now, we're going to go through some essentially international news. We're going to go through some banking news also. Before we do that, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news. Let's see where we were at inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the next news on tonight's live. Let's see where we were at. We were at here. Hi, Miles and family. Harry, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good day, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and all CMF. Let's go, JP. Good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. SB, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, brother Miles. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, peeps. Funky brother, let's go. I haven't heard much about ACH, anything, not so much news around ACH right now, to be fairly honest, except the last news that they had where they partnered with essentially Ripple. Hip hip hooray. Let's go, funky brother. Miles, what do you know about SEI? What's your thoughts? My previous thoughts regarding SEI was it's not something I would say is a must-have in any sort of way in my crypto portfolio. And I'll stick by it. I'm watching the Bloomberg news. They are saying that the Wall Street are a bit bored with BTC, so they are going to go for alternative coins that are more risk on, as BTC has started to behave like a stock, buy and hold, and nothing more. More Wall Street are looking into ETH and altcoins. Facts, they are. And thank you so much, Funky Brother, for showing that regarding what's happening on Bloomberg right now. But facts, even going back essentially even a month before, those discussions on Bloomberg that essentially they're going to be moving off this whole, buy and sell aspect that Bitcoin only provides, because it has no utility. Let's be honest with ourselves. It only has the limited token supply, which is why it makes it such an appealing asset. But there was a discussion on Bloomberg that happened where they said that it's time to move on to utility going forward, which is the altcoins. Let's be honest with ourselves. Ethereum, XRP, XLM, XDC, Solana, AVAX, all these crypto projects provide some sort of utility in their own fields, which makes sense why Wall Street wants to be in that area rather than just buy and sell area. Because most people forget about the real purpose of cryptocurrencies, which is utility. The real purpose of cryptocurrencies is not buy, sell, buy, sell. That's a stock. The real purpose of cryptocurrencies is utility. It's always been since day one, but it could never go into utility because we had no regulations. But now that we're in a stage of regulations, especially the Clarity Act coming up in September, we should be seeing slowly utility happening straight after that law was passed and signed essentially by Donald Trump. Now, let's go more into the comment section. Let's see what's going on there. Hi, Miles. What date's important for start of bull run? Johnny, good to see you. Johnny, we're not that far off. Miles, what about Hot, Beam, and Link? Hot, Beam, and Link. Hot, good. Beam, good in the gaming aspect. Link is also good in its own field. I think Beam is a flop. Beam inside the gaming sector, you've got to be careful with the gaming sector. That's why I said, don't go too much towards it. If you want to have, something on the side, sure, Beam is in the gaming sector. But where you want to be mostly, holding towards is the financial sector. Money going digital, as I've said for the last 3 years, is the number one category. I don't care if anybody says AI is the number one category, or Web3 is, or gaming is, or essentially the metaverse is, or NFTs is. No, the number one category inside the crypto space is money going digital. Any project that's involved with the idea of money going digital to be used worldwide, that's in the number one category. That's where you should be, focused on more. And then on the side, if you want to be focused essentially next on Web3, because that's also makes sense, or tokenization, which is only a subcategory of the financial category as well. And then you want to go into the gaming section, AI section, and so on. So that should be your small side. Most sides, the majority of portfolio should be towards the financial sector, because people will switch and swap to the best AI project, switch and swap to the best gaming project, to the metaverse project, NFT project, but you can't switch and swap when money essentially is chosen of which project is going to be the backbone of the new money, the new digital money. That won't change. Now, good evening, Miles. How's things? Khalid, things are great. Good to see you as well. What dates he do rate cut? September. Miles, is XDC not moving like the other coins? Miles, XDC is not moving like the other coins. Don't worry, XDC will move in its due time as well. Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Miles, as 1,000 XRP high amount and can change life. 1,000 XRP is a great amount to have in your portfolio, and it can change your life over time. Not overnight, but over time. Hello, Susie. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Thank God XRP case finally over today for good. XRP is now free. Yeah, honestly, facts. We're going to go through that a little bit later on tonight's slide, but the judge really had no choice. I mean, they can't force Ripple and the SEC to go headbutting each other, because that case was technically over. The judge had no choice but to sign it off because they can't force the SEC and Ripple to keep on continuing that. Now, Philippines. Philippines considers Bitcoin for a national reserve. So, the US might not be interested, essentially, according to Scott Benson, to create some sort of a Bitcoin reserve, but Philippines seems like they're interested. So here it is. Miguez, who introduced the House Bill 421, proposing the Philippines Central Bank acquires 10,000 Bitcoins over 5 years to bolster national reserves. The proposal aims to enhance financial security, drawing essential parallels with El Salvador's Bitcoin initiative, potentially affecting global cryptocurrency and financial markets. A new legislative essential proposal in the Philippines aims to include Bitcoin as a part of their country's national reserve. This initiative, led by essential Representative Miguez, is outlined in the proposed House Bill 421 in the Philippines, targeting essential strict asset diversifications. Miguez, the chairperson of the House of Committee on Information and Communications Technology, sponsors the bill. This measure could see essentially Bangko Central in the Philippines acquiring 10,000 Bitcoins over a 5-year period to bolster their sovereign reserves. Immediate effects might include increased market volatility and interest in Bitcoin as a reserve asset. This will place the Philippines alongside nations like El Salvador and Switzerland on that matter, which have pursued similar policies of a crypto adoption and reserve diversifications. The potential funding involved totals of approximately $1.1 billion US, implying a significant essentially shift. Such a move reflects a growing trend towards diversification of assets by essentially national governments in a bid for economic stability and growth. The bill could pave the way for the future essentially national crypto reserves. This strategy might influence regional financial policies, economic confidence, and enhance the Philippines' position inside the global economy. Historical trends that essentially indicates that the national adoption of Bitcoin affects its market perception and can lead to essentially regulatory developments. The outcome of this bill might influence not only domestic economic policies, but also international financial relations. This representation deems it essentially vital to the Philippines stockpile strict assets such as essentially BTC to serve important national interests such as providing financial stability, among others, Miguel said. So, even though the US might not be thinking about creating some sort of Bitcoin reserve, seems like Philippines is. And if the Philippines does, it's a positive news for essentially Michael Saylor. Things might be looking up for him finally. Now, moving on essentially from the Philippines to Swiss. The Swiss National Bank invests up to $38 million in MicroStrategy. The Swiss National Bank, SNB, has significantly increased its stakes in the tech firm MicroStrategy by investing an additional $38 million. This development brings the SNB's total exposure to Bitcoin via MicroStrategy to approximately $253 million now. This move indicates the SNB's growing interest in cryptocurrencies in terms of market, specifically for Bitcoin, by linking essentially to the major crypto holder like MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, a company known essentially as the strategy, is widely recognized for aggressive acquisition of Bitcoin, and Switzerland's national bank essentially has taken an interest in that sense. MicroStrategy also now holds 597,325 Bitcoins. According to MicroStrategy themselves, this continues the trend of institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies primed by MicroStrategy's essentially acts of a de facto essentially Bitcoin ETF. Saylor maintains a robust online presence, frequently essentially updating the public on his company's Bitcoin acquisitions. His essentially consistent advocacy for Bitcoin has played a pivotal role in that matter in changing institutional perspectives towards cryptocurrency investments. Essentially, Michael Saylor's strategic essentially moves demonstrates the potential for the company to use cryptocurrencies as a hedge and store of value, further essentially blurring the lines between traditional finance and digital assets. And according to research firm JP Morgan, approximately 50 billion essentially of global investors and assets are indirectly exposed to Bitcoin via MicroStrategy stock alone. This indicates that the substantial effects that institutional interest in MicroStrategy can have on a broader cryptocurrency market space. Notably, institutions tend to influence market sentiments, as seen in the past events where substantial acquisitions by major investors lead to significant essential crypto market rallies. So the Swiss National Bank taking an interest essentially more towards MSTR stocks, purchasing another $38 million, bringing their total to about $258 million. And according to also JP Morgan, about $50 billion globally has been invested essentially towards some sort of Bitcoin strategy acquisitions. It could be either through MSTR or through ETFs. That is a substantial amount of money right there, which shows confidence towards a digital market space. Now, moving away essentially from MicroStrategy, Switzerland, and Philippines, and going into now Dubai, when we're at the stage of international news right now regarding cryptocurrencies. So the UAE, the United essentially Arab Emirates, has the RAK Bank essentially decided to add BNB to their bank. So here it is. BNB now available in the UAE's top tier bank. The National Bank of Ras Al Khaimah, or RAK Bank, one of the most technologically advanced fintechs in the UAE and a public company of in the country's top 100, adds support for BNB, Binance cryptocurrency. The announcement essentially comes as BNB's price hit an all-time high of over essentially $880. BNB, the fifth largest cryptocurrency by market cap and tokenomics, backbone of Binance's ecosystem, debuts on RAK Bank, a top-tier banking entity in the UAE. The official essentially announcement was made by CZ himself. RAK Bank cryptocurrency trading services are provided in partnership through Bitpanda, which is also a Ripple partner. And why I'm mentioning Ripple when it's just BNB news is because RAK Bank also offers XRP and a few other ones, which we're going to go through now. Essentially, MENA-regulated digital finance platform. As of press time, RAK Bank offers its clients 8 major cryptocurrencies that they see viable. Bitcoin is offered to their client base in the UAE, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, BNB Now, Chainlink, Tron, and Cardano. With RAK Bank, essentially residents of the UAE can trade cryptocurrencies in pairs with AED with no need to convert their assets into US dollars or even euros. The registration is available to users who pass their KYC checks and provided copies of the Emirates essentially ID copies. Helmed by Mohammed Orman Al-Shamish, the National Bank of Ras essentially Al Khaimah was launched in 1976. The government of Ras Al Khaimah, essentially Emirates, owns over 52% of their shares. The bank stocks are listed on the essentially Abu Dhabi Securities Exchange ADX. Besides regular banking, trading, and FX services, the platform also offers Sharia law compliant personal, wholesale, and business essentially banking services to obviously its Islamic nation. The announcement comes aimed essentially impressive upsurge of BNB on this announcement that BNB now is their next chosen token to be available to their client base, which is brilliant news for BNB. Also, again, just the acceptance of cryptocurrencies worldwide is just growing day by day. It's just honestly amazing to watch. Moving off the UAE news and Switzerland news and Philippine news and El Salvador news to now Van Eck. Before we talk about Van Eck, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight into the next news. Let's see where we're at. As I said previously, this is live. As always, if you do have a question or comment, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. So let's go inside the comment section, and I read everybody's comments one by one. I don't want to miss out on anyone. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were at here. Good evening, Miles. The CMF, Bull XRP. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? How much time I will wait for 1,000 XRP? 1 year? I couldn't be able to tell you. What I would be able to tell you is consider variable change. Hi, Miles, the CMF TV. Good to see you guys. Let's go, Miles, for Facts News. Let's go, Carl. Good to see you as well. Good evening, Miles, the CMF. Everything good to see you as well. How you doing? Brazil are also considering buying $19 billion in Bitcoin, Miles. Yes, I saw the news, Ian, regarding yesterday's news. They are considering, that's true. What up, Miles and CMF? Happy Friday. Hope all is well. Ray, let's go. Good to see you as well. How you doing, brother? How you been? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Hi, Miles, the CMF. Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing, Peg? How you been? Also, thank you so much to everybody once again who has already liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, thank you so much to everybody who has already liked and retweeted this live on X. If you haven't, please like and retweet this live on X. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, thank you so much to everyone who's also liked the live. And if you haven't, please like the live also. If you have, thank you so much. Now, Van Eck. VanEck essentially has filed to launch the first ever spot Solana ETF fully backed by liquid staking tokens. So here's the news on VanEck. According to a Form S1 filed by VanEck Digital Assets today, the proposed JITO-SOL ETF aims to track JITO-SOL's price. This represents ownership essentially of staked Solana tokens plus accumulated staking rewards. The fund will essentially be structured to expose investors to Solana and staking essentially yields through traditional brokerage accounts. It follows essentially the SEC's recent guidance stating that these certain essentially liquid staking activities are not security transactions and therefore do not require registration anymore. JITSO may be subject to community-determined penalties for validators' misbehavior or slashing on the underlying SOL. If the trust essentially JITSO is affected by such slashing losses on the underlying SOL, the stored SOL essentially may not get as many staking rewards. This could essentially cause the price of JITSO to go down, that matter. As an earlier reported essentially by Cryptopolitan, Miranda Finance slashed and restaked essentially 340,000 SOL, removing validators from its list. The process is not entirely detailed to mainstream finance regulators, and the SEC also will have to research the conditions of staking and slashing if essentially they want to take this route. Now, also, because of JITSO, it's based on protocol-based liquid staking activities. The trust expects to earn certain essentially staking rewards through its ownership of JITSO. Those essential rewards may be counted as income for US federal income tax purposes. There will always be only one JITSO custodian and one additional JITSO custodian in the possession of essentially in charge of the private keys of any JITSO. Some risk essentially come with staking on Solana's network because SOL is given to essentially their validators. The sponsor of the ETF may sometimes sell JITSO to cover two things: to provide cash to participants who are redeeming their shares and to pay for certain expenses that the sponsor itself essentially doesn't cover, which is essentially VanEck. These sales may be handled with the help of liquidity providers of custodian holdings of JITSO. The ETF JITSO will essentially be kept with third-party custodians, which carries insurance protections. However, this insurance may not fully cover all potential losses. It is essentially, if the trust of JITSO were lost or stolen, there is a chance that neither the trust or its custodians nor any related parties would be legally responsible for reimbursing investors. In addition to the transfer agent will manage and process the creation of redemption of their shares and baskets. Also, the clarification was issued under the SEC's Project Crypto initiative. So the SEC has, if you don't know, the SEC has essentially released some sort of a project called Project Crypto to bring more innovation inside the United States when it comes to cryptocurrencies, which seeks essentially to modernize rules around activities like staking, custody, and token distributions. And that's why VanEck has decided to take advantage of this, because the SEC introduced Project Crypto to bring essentially more innovation inside the United States, and also sorting out the whole mess between staking and custodian and so on. VanEck decided to essentially apply for some sort of a Solana ETF staking, liquid staking essentially. This is important because regulators have often been cautious about staking, especially liquid staking, because it comes with an extra risk. The filing shows that there may be a path forward for ETFs that include staking mechanisms now. Still, besides essentially VanEck's S1 filing, at least 7 other issuers are actively pursuing spot Solana ETFs right now as well. This includes major firms like Grayscale, VanEck now, Bitwise, Canary, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, and CoinShares. All awaits the SEC's essentially approval, with key decisions window opening by October 2025. According to industry experts, approval odds are as high as 95%, not just for essentially Solana, but in general for altcoins to be approved. The 95% technically came from Bloomberg experts James and Eric. Now, moving off VanEck news offering some sort of, if they get approval, offering some sort of Solana liquid staking, essentially ETFs to their client base, which is great to see essentially ETFs and staking coming together, because it makes a much more appealing asset, which will bring more investors towards it. Honestly, if Ethereum had staking capabilities since day one as an ETF, then it would have been such a much more appealing asset for investors on Wall Street to go towards, rather than going, because Bitcoin has that limited token supply, which makes it an appealing asset. Ethereum didn't offer much to Wall Street folks. That's why you saw Bitcoin shooting up and Ethereum not moving as much since the day essentially had started with ETFs. If it had staking capabilities, it would have done a much more better price point by now. Now, moving off that, we're going to talk about something everybody should know if you are an iPhone user and you keep essentially wallets on your iPhones. Before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first, and then I'll tell you what the next news is. let's see where we're at. We were at, as I said previously, once again, this is live, just like always. If you have a comment or question, put it down inside the comment section. Even if I was a CMF, Jason, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Ramon, Shiba Inu. What about Shiba Inu? Look, I've said this more. I've said this before. I'll say it again. People ask me about meme coins, sometimes, and my perspective has always been the same on meme coins, which is, we're going towards a very regulated market space. You should be able to tell right now, we're going towards a very, very regulated market space. That's the run that we're going towards. We're going towards a regulated run, an institutional run, a government run, pretty much inside the crypto space. A utility run is what we're going towards. And where you want to position yourself isn't towards a zebra token, camel token, frog token, cat token, donkey token. You want to position yourself in legitimate assets. However, I have said in the past, and I'll stand by it, if there is essentially any sort of meme coins, in terms of will meme coins survive going forward in those regulations, 99% won't. The only meme coins I said that will survive since day one is Dogecoin, because of Elon Musk. As long as Elon Musk is standing behind Dogecoin, it will survive anything. I said Shiba Inu is essentially next to be surviving anything, because Shiba Inu has a humongous, essentially, community behind it that always try to work on the chain, provide something to essentially its user base. And also they have had racked up a few partnerships, even in the Middle East, even in the UAE, with some oil firms, to be very honest. And I also said essentially Lunar is pretty much, the other one that's going to survive anything. These three, in my opinion, should survive pretty much anything that's thrown at them. If that's what you're asking regarding Shiba Inu. But I heard some news also regarding Shiba Inu. They're releasing some sort of chains essentially today and so on. Hi, Miles, and everyone. Hope everyone is well. One love. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? But yeah, preferably you want to be positioned essentially in legitimate crypto assets going through regulations. On the side, if you want to have, those few, why not? It's your choice, your money, your life. Now, get ready for next month. Facts. Miles, I saw on TikTok something called Digital Asset Investor. Is it you? No, that's not me. Miles, then thanks for your preparation daily. No problem, Scott, anytime. Happy Pisces. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? When really think XRP can be $100? Johnny, consider available change. I just got a notification. ETH all-time high. Let's go. Thanks for that update. Only Doge and Shiba. Maybe PEP too. Yeah, I would say, yeah, maybe. Now, if you are an iPhone user and you keep your crypto wallets on your iPhone, update your iPhones now, because Apple essentially is releasing an update, especially for essentially crypto users, because apparently iPhones have one vulnerability that hackers can enter into to, steal your information, credentials, or something related to essentially on your notes. If you write your crypto keys on your notes and so on, some people do that still. So here it is. Apple patches zero-click vulnerability that posed risk for crypto users. Apple has essentially urged customers to update their devices immediately after fixing a zero-click security flaw that allowed attackers to compromise iPhones, iPads, and Macs. A vulnerability essentially expert warned and posed particular risk for cryptocurrency holders. In essentially an advisory event from Apple themselves, Apple said the bug was tied to its Image I/O framework, which essentially processes image files. Improper implementation allowed malicious images to trigger out of bonds and memory writes, creating a pathway for attackers to run arbitrary code on targeted essentially devices. The patch was rolled out essentially on Mac OS Simone and essentially Mac OS Virtue, Mac OS Seco, and iPad OSs and iPhone OSs. If you once again are an Apple user, go to your settings, not right now, but go to your settings after this live and essentially see if there's an iPhone update. If there isn't, that means most likely your iPhone automatically updated it. If there is an update, that means, update your iPhones. The cybersecurity researchers said the exploit is particularly concerning for those in cryptocurrencies, given that wallet data and key storage can be directly targeted. An attachment delivered via iMessage can be processed automatically and let the device compromises. Rizzo, the founder of security firm essentially Concept attackers gaining access could potentially reach wallet credentials. He added, Rizzo also advised high-value users who store private keys on affected essentially devices to migrate wallets if there are signs of compromise and to secure primary essentially accounts such as email or cloud services that attackers might use for secondary access. For everyday users, he said Apple is best placed to detect and notify victims of confirmed, essentially, exploitation. Zero-click attacks are particularly dangerous because they require no action from the victim, which means, in other words, if you essentially receive a message, let's say you receive a message from a scammer, for example, and it's just a picture on iMessage, you don't really need to even open the picture or click on the picture or anything. The moment a scammer, for example, sends you this type of image as an iMessage, and you just see the iMessage there and you know it's a scam, so you won't even open it. It doesn't matter because your iPhone has already essentially scanned that image, which means you're vulnerable. So this is why this type of virus essentially is very dangerous, because you don't even need to click on anything. That's why it's called a zero click. You don't even need to click on it to become vulnerable. You just become vulnerable from receiving that type of message. They said essentially the advisory follows a string of crypto-related breaches in recent months, including a $91 million theft through social engineering and compromises of an Ethereum developer's wallet via malicious, essentially, browser extensions. Even Chrome has been compromised in that sense. A new legislative proposal essentially also going around in terms of securing their people's crypto assets. And also, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, I told everyone about Ripple and a few other crypto companies signing up to this firm that's going to be helping the crypto space. What I'm trying to say is, please always update your devices. If you're an Android user or even an iPhone user, if you receive an update from your manufacturers, don't leave it essentially a day or two. Update your phones straight away. If you receive essentially a manufacturing update through your phone's settings, update your phones. If there's an update in your phone's settings, the reason why I'm saying settings is just in case you receive a random update and you can try to click on it. Go to your phone settings. If there's an update, update it always, because your manufacturers are trying to protect you from situations like this. And this one is a very dangerous one because you don't even need to open up the malicious iMessage. Your iPhone just scans it. And just by that scan, they're pretty much in. It's a zero-click situation. Now, moving on from that to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has decided to create a law that could be bad for government workers or even the president of the United States. So, as every American state takes one step forward, Pennsylvania decided to take 2 steps back. Owning BTC disallowed for lawmakers per Pennsylvania HB 1812 bill. In Pennsylvania, they're trying to actually make it essentially some sort of illegal as a government worker to hold Bitcoin. In a recent Bitcoin news, essentially on the regulatory front, lawmakers in the US might soon not be allowed to buy Bitcoin. This is because of Pennsylvania's HB 1812 bill, which proposes banning public officials and their families from owning BTC. Interesting enough, they haven't mentioned anything about other cryptocurrencies so far. The Pennsylvania essentially HB 1812 bill proposed restricting government officials from accessing essentially to Bitcoin and other digital assets. This includes owning essentially and transacting cryptocurrency, stable coins, and ETFs during their tenures in the last 12 months after leaving office. This is a way for Pennsylvania to stop certain government members getting paid off by cryptocurrency, essentially cryptocurrency companies. So, if you didn't know, one of the main reasons why we had a complete Republican sweep when voting was happening and Trump became president, and with a genuine complete Republican sweep, is because there was companies like Ripple and Coinbase and a few of the blockchain companies coming together to essentially fund the pockets of politicians, but not in an obviously direct way, indirect way, by essentially helping them with their ad fees, and they're essentially promoting them, in other words, to get them elected. Apparently, Pennsylvania is the one state to stand up and say, nope, government people should not essentially be, involved in cryptocurrencies. They should not be holding cryptocurrencies whatsoever, not even ETFs. According to the bill, any public officials found to be in essentially a violation of the bill would be fined as much as $50,000. They will also be required to disclose any holdings above $1,000. Moreover, any crypto holdings that politicians own must be sold off at least 90 days before they assume office. The Pennsylvania HB 1812 bill was a nod to similar bills introduced in the past with intent to block lawmakers from trading stocks. This bill essentially was introduced because politicians were previously using privileged information to make trades. The bill was introduced because politicians were using their positions for insider trading. I like how, it wasn't a big issue when it was politicians were being fed information on the stock market For all these years, since the dawn of time of the stock market and politicians, it was okay for politicians to be fed information to trade on the stock market, even though it shouldn't be, but it was okay. The moment we have crypto companies essentially helping a politician here and there, now it's all of a sudden a big issue. Politicians should not be trading stocks, should not be trading cryptocurrencies. But it's perfectly fine when they were just trading stocks. But now they've evolved cryptocurrencies, it's became a major issue. This was likely the same reason why Pennsylvania's HB Essential 121 was introduced, especially now that digital currencies are going mainstream. According to the state website, the bill was in the first committee assessment stage. In other words, it was still too early to tell whether they would essentially eventually become going to law. Meanwhile, the bill's effectiveness was in question. Law banning lawmakers essentially from investing in stocks did not yield much success. It technically failed. Some lawmakers still found ways to bypass the law. This includes investing but paying the substantive fines, which often ended up being small compared to the gains they made on the stock market. The bill also proposed banning family members was essentially also vague, given how easy it would be to bypass this situation too. US President Donald Trump will likely not be pleased with Pennsylvania trying to introduce this bill because Trump's administration, or Trump himself, or the Trump family owns technically a crypto project, World Liberty Financial. Furthermore, Trump has been closely linked to World Liberty Financial, a company whose roots have been pushing deeper inside the crypto space and Web3 essentially industry. Trump's family members include his sons, reportedly holding substantial stake in World Liberty Financial. Addresses linked to Trump has also essentially suggested that there is a sizable crypto portfolio in that matter. This means that POTUS and his family might be forced to essentially get rid of their crypto projects. That's never going to happen. The idea of essentially Trump's family, or Trump himself, getting rid essentially of any of their crypto projects is just never going to happen, to be fairly honest. But that is essentially where Pennsylvania right now is standing at. They're standing at on the stage and saying basically that no one should be able to trade cryptocurrencies or stocks. These factors could complement the bill's path and determine whether the bill will successfully become law. There was also the matter of crypto being considered as commodities and also new forms of money. This could present the argument that politicians should not be allowed to access alternative currencies. Nonetheless, the Pennsylvania HB 1812 bill underscores the maturing crypto segment and its transition to mainstream finance. The bill also essentially revealed that some lawmakers were keen on implementing proper regulations inside the crypto segments. However, in addition to the multiple developments in latest essential Bitcoin news, the controversial nature of this bill suggests that the path ahead could turn around to be very interesting. But I just find it interesting that it was perfectly fine for all these years for politicians to be paid off by pharmaceutical companies, to be paid off by inside information on stocks. But the moment crypto companies start getting politicians on their side, all of a sudden there's a big issue. No politician should be trading information, and they shouldn't be, to be fairly honest. But when it works out positively for the crypto space, is all of a sudden, they're making a big deal. Oh, it's inside information. Oh, they're filling their pockets just to get their agenda across. It's a bit odd. When pharmaceutical companies were doing it, it was perfectly fine. We could see which side, Pennsylvania wants to please. Now, SBI is what we're going to talk about next. But before we talk about SBI, let's go inside the comment section first. And then we go straight into SBI news, which is now getting involved in tokenization with one new partner. So let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we're at. And then we go straight to that news. Thank God I'm up to date. Let's go, Funky Brother, regarding the update. Miles, what's a Black Swan event? Miles, what Black Swan event is possible? What Black Swan event is possible? The concept of a Black Swan that's just been going around for years is that the World Economic Forum has mentioned a few things that as a possibility of happening. We don't know which one is going to be happening. We can consider each of them as an outcome. So 3 years ago, there was information that was coming out from the World Economic Forum that there could be internet issues going further into essentially to 2030, or between 2027 to 2030, there could be internet issues, is what they were saying. So we can have a complete blackout situation regarding the internet. That could be a Black Swan event. There was the other issue of essentially is, who the founder of Bitcoin could be a government entity. It could be China, for example, trying to get American businesses involved, the American government involved, and then dump it into the entire market space. So there's been multiple essentially situations of Black Swan events. We don't really know which one is going to play out, but we could consider all of them as an outcome. And the idea of a black swan event is that it happens, and then we go into a new financial, essentially, new financial world, with a new digital payment world. We could also enter into a digital world without a black swan event. That's also a possibility as well. There could just be a massive distraction, which is technically what black swan is, but a different type of distraction. And then we start shifting into a digital world. Let's just be honest with ourselves. They have been preparing us for a digital world since COVID. Because COVID was when the World Bank did essentially testings on blockchain. It was successful. Then COVID happens. World Economic Forum, before COVID, they said we need something to get people off cash. And they said cash carries germs is the best scenario. So World Bank does testings on blockchain. It was successful. COVID happens. During COVID, banks and cash points start disappearing. Businesses only start accepting card payments. And some businesses only accept cash. During COVID also, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, and so on surged incredibly. Cryptocurrencies also came onto the scene as well. Going forward, more banks closed down in terms of branches, more ATMs disappeared in terms of branches, and also more businesses didn't accept cash anymore. Everything in this world was set up for us to go into a digital world. We didn't stumble upon a digital world inside the retail section. If they came out day one and said, if governments and banks and major institutions like BlackRock came out to day one and said, we've created something digital, it's called Bitcoin and so on, and we want you to get involved and the world's going to go towards this essentially direction, everybody would have said, hell no. Honestly, day one, if they came out, the government came out or institutional banks came out and said, we've created something called Bitcoin and everybody's going to get used to it, so start using it. Everybody would have said, hell no, there'll be massive protests going on and so on. But instead, they made it look like that we stumbled upon it and so on. But if you look at the timeline, 2008, biggest crash market's ever seen, and 2009, Bitcoin stumbles upon the scene. Everything is very coordinated in this world, but they made it look like we stumbled upon digital currencies. Because if they didn't do that, the other idea would have been for them to say, we're your government, we've created digital payments, here it is. Everybody said, no. But if they make you stumble upon it, then it looks like it's made by the people, it's for the people. And in reality, if you just look at the timeline, everything was set up for you to find it. It's like someone buried treasure and then gave you the map. And then you picked up a map thinking you found it and you know where the treasure is. Now, I wouldn't mind if the Republicans and Democrats were transparent. Neither of them are. That's real talk facts. It's politicians. Politicians are not truthful people. They'll say one thing for voting and another thing when they actually get elected. I'll be honest, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Out of all the politicians I've ever seen in my entire lifetime, there are a few I can name that I've seen that, one of them I've heard because I wasn't alive at that moment in time. But Trump, in my opinion, has been the only politician you can pretty much say that has kept his word up to a certain extent by closing the borders and keeping essentially America clean and bringing more jobs inside the US. Now, other things, this is why I say he's kept his promises up to a certain extent. Obviously, we know the list situation, but the Democrats could have also released the list as well. Putting that to one side, he is the only one I've seen so far who's kept some, up to a certain extent, his essentially policies. But I agree 100% regarding politicians in general. Yeah, they're all, I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you have children and, they're thinking about becoming doctors or engineers or so on, just tell them to become politicians because you get tax-paid money. You get to go through loopholes in life, lie through your teeth, and people will still forget and still support you. Honestly, why go through so many years of medical exams and so on to become a doctor just to make that money when you could just become a politician? Just lie through your teeth and get tax-paying money, and everybody will still vote for you because people are forgetful. That's sarcasm, by the way. Some truth to that too, though. Miles, I'm hearing UK is not safe and in civil uproar soon. Yes, in the UK, freedom of speech is a bit of an issue right now, which means I'm not going to be talking too much about it because freedom of speech is a bit of an issue in the UK. Justin, essentially, head of IRS crypto unit, Trish Turner, has resigned. Yes, I saw that news and I reposted it as well. It's true. Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning. How you been? Some people find it okay with the people in power getting rich off from power, while others are going under financially. To each is their own. I agree. I hear the conversation through thoughts of the elites. I cringe. We have them everywhere, even in our group. Push the like button. Let's go, Ian. Hi, Miles. Sorry I'm late on tonight. I've been out, but I'm sure you will give another great live. Let's go, Addy. Good to see you. How you doing? I've seen or heard, known even Trump. Lol, let's go back. Trump said he would release it. The Dems did not say that. I personally think he needs to be released. What is Trump hiding? Regarding the list, I'll be very honest. What Trump is probably using the list for is pressuring Democrats to do what he wants to do. I think personally, if that list ever gets released, it will collapse the US government overnight. I think the people on that list is going to be the majority of American Republicans and Democrats and liberals, the majority of essentially the Senate, the majority of the governors, the majority of the Supreme Court members, the majority of CEOs of companies. The entire US economy would collapse overnight if they release that list. And I'm not saying they shouldn't release that list, because anybody that does something like that should be in prison, in my opinion, 100%. But I think Trump is using that list to his own benefit. He's using that list to essentially make the people on that list do certain things for him and accept certain things. I'll give you an example. It's very odd that we did the Genius Act. So the Genius Act was happening, and Democrats and even 11 Republicans rejected it, the first round of votings. Straight away, there was supposed to be another round of votings, which Trump canceled and said, everybody who rejected the vote pretty much, even 11 Republicans, come to my offices now. They had a discussion with Trump. The next day, they were all yes. How do you make 11 people go from no to yes like that? You've got to have something on them. So in my point of view, he's using that list for his own benefit. He's using that list to make certain politicians do certain things to get things approved. And again, you know, the idea of that list, I agree 100%. It should be released. It should be released. You know, people like that should be in prison. But I do also believe if that list gets released, the U.S. economy, the U.S. government will collapse. The U.S. honestly, U.S. businesses and U.S. government will collapse within a space of 24 hours. Also, on the Democratic side of the list, it should have been released on the Democrat side as well. And the Democrats could actually have released that list. And, you know, regarding, Trump said he would release it. The Dems did not say that. The Dems did not say that, but technically it was supposed to be released on the Dems, but the judge didn't allow it. A Democratic judge, essentially, support Democratic judge, didn't allow it to be released. Also, when the votings happened for the list to be released, the Democrats voted in favor of essentially releasing it. The Republicans voted in favor of not releasing it, but the Democrats knew they would lose the vote either way. So they voted on, you know, trying to act like the angels in that scenario, because the maths wouldn't add up, even if the Democrats voted no or yes. Hello, Miles. Hello, Miles. What do you think of XRP and HBAR before 2026? You have probably answered this 100 times. Harris, good to see you as well. How you doing? Regarding HBAR and XRP, what do I think of both of them? XRP, incredible asset. HBAR, great asset as well. Are they comparable? No. XRP is, in my opinion, above HBAR, but either way, they're both incredible assets. Both have mega futures ahead of themselves, even before 2026. And 2027 is going to be even more interesting, essentially, outcome as well, because that's when all the bank branches close down according to HSBC standards. HSBC, NatWest Bank, Lloyds Bank, Barclays Bank, HSBC Bank, Nationwide Bank. All these banks did mention that they're going to be closing all their branches by 2027, because that's going to be even more interesting here. Grisha Maxwell testimony has been released. Miles, I wholeheartedly agree. The list kills the US government and the economy. Facts. Now, I agree with you, Scott, as well. Facts. Regarding the whole collapse situation. SBI now. SBI Startail, essentially to launch a platform for tokenized stocks and real-world assets. So SBI, you know, everybody knows it as the company that partnered with Ripple a long time ago, regarding, you know, essentially through Japan. They've decided to go into tokenization now. The Japanese financial giant SBI Holdings has partnered with blockchain infrastructure firm Startail Group to create an on-chain trading platform designed for tokenized stocks and real-world assets, the company said today. The venture essentially will combine SBI's financial services network with essentially Startail's blockchain technology to address gaps in existing tokenized stock offerings, according to a joint statement. The platform will support 24/7 trading, faster essentially cross-border settlements, and fractional essential ownership of tokenized shares, while also linking access to decentralized finance DeFi protocols. Additional features will include institutional-grade security, custody, account essentially obstruction, and compliance monitoring across international jurisdictions. To deliver the project, SBI and Startail will set up two joint ventures entities, one essentially focused on technology developments, the other essentially on branding and business essentially expansions. We believe the tokenized stock revolution is the largest opportunity on-chain trading platform in the next frontier, said essentially Sota Wantpa, the founder essentially of Startail Group. Traditional markets remain closed around 70% of time, but our platform will enable continuous programmable trading of tokenized stocks, including US and Japanese equities. The company did not provide a launch date on that matter. The announcement essentially comes aimed at rapid institutional interest in tokenization. A joint essentially report by Ripple and Boston Consulting Group projects the tokenized asset market could grow to $18.9 trillion by 2033. SBI Holdings, Japan's largest online brokerage, manages more than 11 trillion yuan, which is essentially $76 billion in client assets, and has been a pioneer in the digital financial space. The company operates essentially as SBI VC Trade, one of Japan's licensed crypto trade exchanges. In 2021, acquired crypto trading platform Taotao. It also has issued multiple security tokens domestically under Japan's amended Financial Instruments and Exchange Act, making it one of the first Japanese mega banks to integrate blockchain-based security offerings. Startail Group, founded in 2022 by Sota Wantpa, is best known for developing infrastructure for Astor Network, Japan's largest public blockchain. Wantpa previously essentially also worked on Polkadot's ecosystem projects and has been a prominent voice in Japan's Web3 policy initiatives. And in 2023, Sony Network Communications also invested in Startail to co-develop blockchain services, strengthening its corporate ties. And in recent weeks, Robinhood also tapped into ARB Network to roll out tokenized stocks, while Kraken expanded into X Stocks product to Tron blockchain. And SBI Startail partnership follows Japan's broader push into tokenization. The Financial Services Agency approved security token offerings in 2021, and Norma, FUFG, and Sumitomo and Mitsubishi have also launched their own pilots for tokenized bonds. The concept of tokenization of the stock market is catching on outside the US as well, and Japan seems like they're about to go into it. Tokenization of stocks is going to be massive, and the amount of liquidity it's going to provide is going to be ridiculous. The idea that the stock market that operates on specific times going 24/7 means it just adds so much tremendous amount of liquidity towards the market space that it's just unreal. Now, Russia is what we're going to talk about next. The State Duma debuts suggest legalizing crypto exchanges in Russia. Russia feels like it's getting left out, because the world is moving on, rapidly towards cryptocurrencies right now, rapidly towards CBDCs, cryptocurrencies, tokenization, Web3, AI, blockchain in general. So a group of Russian lawmakers has called on their central banks to facilitate establishments of legal crypto trading platforms in the country right now. The move is challenging the monetary authorities' long-standing position against providing ordinary Russians free access to cryptocurrencies. Several members of the state, the lower house of parliament, essentially appealed to the Central Bank of Russia to permit the launch of a licensed offices for cryptocurrency exchanges to be happening in Russia for the retail section also. Anton, and Gregory, the representatives of the Liberal New People Party, have addressed their proposal to the head of the financial regulators. In the document seen by the RAI, this is what was said. It seems appropriate to consider the possibility of creating a network of legal cryptocurrency exchanges with physical presence and clear requirements for their work. The authors essentially say a mandatory minimum requirement for the size of the authorized capital of such companies should be essentially introduced in order to ensure the financial stability of market participants. They believe their initiative has the potential to significantly reduce the share of illegal turnover of digital assets in Russian Federation. The sponsors of the proposal, also quoted by essentially Graznet.ru, new portal essentially are convinced its implementation will strengthen essentially citizens' trust in financial institutions and provide the state with additional tools to monitor cash flows. The lawmakers essentially are asking governors to order relevant SPR developments to develop a mechanism for licensing crypto exchanges in Russia. They also point out the establishments of authorized platforms will give Russians the opportunity to conduct safe and legal crypto transactions while limiting essentially the risk of fraud and essentially involvements in criminal schemes. The future of cryptocurrencies in the Russian Federation remains unclear at this point in time. Key regulators such as the Bank of Russia and the Ministry of Finance remain opposed to legalizing their free circulation in the country's economy. A special experimental legal regime was established earlier this year to allow companies to buy, exchange, and spend digital coins for the purpose essentially of carrying out foreign trade transactions under sanctions, severely limiting their access to traditional financial channels. In May, essentially, SPR authorized crypto investments through derivative products, but only through essentially highly qualified investors and meeting certain criteria regarding annual income, funds at disposal, and previous investments in securities, for example. The same month, the Finance Ministry announces planning to launch a cryptocurrency exchange in collaboration with the Monetary Authority, again exclusively for qualified investors. Despite Russians essentially already holding over $25 billion worth of crypto assets so far, as reported by Cryptopolitan, ordinary citizens have few options to acquire them legally. And the central bank cautioned citizens about the risk of using crypto exchanges back in June. However, in preparation for the launch of its own digital currency, the digital ruble, which is scheduled essentially to be introduced in the stages starting from September, Russia is about to be introducing their digital ruble in the 1st of September 2026. Russia has been adapting, essentially amending a series of laws, allowing it to tighten its nose on crypto usage. These include the outdated national payment systems law and anti-money laundering legislations, which can be employed to target cryptocurrency transactions, including payments and trading. So it seems like Russia is feeling left out. I mean, the EU is so heavily into cryptocurrencies. The UK is tiptoeing into it. America is so much more into it. Latin American countries are incredibly on board on the idea of cryptocurrencies. India is also on board as well. The rest of the Middle Eastern countries are also on board, and some Asian countries are on board in terms of Japan, Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, and the list just goes on. Australia. So there are so many countries involved, and Russia is technically getting left behind if they don't hurry up. The more countries that get involved, the more liquidity that will be entering towards the market space, the better it is for us, the early holders of essentially certain crypto projects. Now, here it is. The next news we're going to go from tonight's live, which is now we're entering into the XRP Ripple sector of the live. XRP ETF is what we'll talk about first. 21 Shares has decided to enter into an XRP ETF through Delaware. When a major player like 21 Shares, a prominent issuer of crypto ETPs, registers essentially as XRP ETF, it's a big deal. Essentially, an ETF allows investors to gain exposure to an asset, in this case XRP, without directly owning or managing the underlying cryptocurrency. This structure offers several advantages, particularly for traditional investors who might be hesitant about the complexities of direct crypto purchases, essentially, and storage. So, XRP ETF, 21 shares, and it seems like they're doing it through Delaware. The potential launch of an XRP ETF could dramatically alter the investment landscape for XRP. Many institutional investors face hurdles due to regulatory uncertainties, which could be very heavily fixed by the Clarity Act, which is going to be passed in September. Consider the impact essentially that's happened on Bitcoin ETFs had on Bitcoin's price and institutional adoption. While not a direct comparison due to XRP's ongoing legal situations, which has also ended, the principle remains: increased accessibility often leads to increased demand and liquidity. This registration could be a powerful catalyst for XRP during a new wave of capital form for traditional essentially finance. This development is particularly noteworthy given the ongoing legal battles that have essentially come to an end today, on paper officially, and a degree of confidence that essentially now gives to XRP's future as a token in itself. While the Delaware registration is a positive indicator, it is just one step of the journey to an actively traded XRP ETF involves several regulatory hurdles, most notably approval from the US SEC, which now I think the US SEC going into September, getting the Clarity Act out of the way, the SEC knows what they're doing, the CFTC knows what they're doing because of that law, then I think the SEC would have no issues approving ETFs. I think they're mainly just waiting for the Clarity Act to be passed through, signed by Trump within a week. Then they can move forward with approving ETFs, to be fairly honest, because there's really nothing stopping them after the Clarity Act, because they know what they're doing, and so does the CFTC. So major news on that sense, 21 shares, incredibly big, going essentially through Delaware. Now, also on that whole subject of Ripple, so on paper today it was finally announced that the judges essentially have, declared the news that Ripple SEC case closed forever. We all knew the case was finished because the SEC and Ripple both backed out. So the judges can't make them headbutt each other if none of them want to go to court anymore. But it's nice to see on paper it's finished, it's done, it's dusted. So the Ripple lawsuit with the US SEC has finally come to an end. After almost 5 years, essentially the court has approved a joint request from both Ripple and the SEC to dismiss the appeals. The documents essentially were released today, and the SEC decided to drop its appeals, while Ripple and its executives Chris Lawson and Brad also chose to withdraw their own cross appeals as well. But now the case is fully closed. Ripple must pay that penalty to the SEC, and Judge Torres has already ruled that Ripple owed $125 million for breaking that securities law while selling XRP to institutional investors. This fund was already essentially placed in an escrow while the case continued as it waited for an appeal on to essentially finish. Also, breaking news is just coming through right now that essentially Grayscale has approved and Grayscale has applied for an XRP ETF. That is incredible also. One second. So everyone, Grayscale has just applied for an XRP ETF as well. That is incredible as well. So two on that sense, in other words, through Delaware essentially is 21 shares and Grayscale in itself. Amazing. As I said previously, if there is essentially filings happening through major establishments for certain ETFs, it shows that their client base wants that asset. So if there is essentially Grayscale, or in this sense, in 21 shares, and the other ones, Franklin Templeton and so on, the older ones that have applied essentially for XRP ETFs, it shows that their client base wants an XRP ETF. So we know for a fact, once it gets approved, that purchases are going to be coming through, liquidity is going to be flowing through. Also, to add on top of that, Ripple to launch RLUSD stablecoin in Japan under new regulations. Ripple has partnered with Japan's SBI Holdings to introduce the Ripple USD RLUSD stablecoin in the Japanese market space. The companies plan to distribute the digital asset by the first quarter of 2026, positioning it for institutional and enterprise applications under Japan's revised regulatory structure. SBI VC Trade, a fully registered and licensed subsidiary of SBI Holdings, will facilitate its local distribution of RLUSD. This partnership essentially is to see collaboration between Japan and the US as Japan tries to draft a regulatory regime to regulate the trading of stablecoins, which focuses on legal compliance, transparency, and investor protection. The rollout identifications essentially are in progress. RLUSD will be one-to-one backed by US dollars and Ripple's assorted. These will come from essentially these will be backed by cash deposits, short-term US government bonds, and similar cash assets. This will be essentially overseen by third-party accounting firms that will perform monthly sortations of reserve holdings. This framework essentially is tailor-made to accommodate the institutional needs of financial security and disclosure. RLUSD is being positioned as an enterprise-grade stablecoin. Ripple aims to serve corporate financial systems through this digital asset, which is tailored for regulated environments. This is honestly incredible news coming out regarding Ripple. Jack, also the Ripple Senior Vice President of Stablecoins, noted that the partnership with SBI aligns with Ripple's broader goal of building a compliant financial system. He described RLUSD as a practical bridge connecting centralized financial institutions and decentralized platforms. Ripple had previously essentially acquired the stablecoin platform Rail for $200 million, as we've discussed before. The global essentially stablecoin market currently holds a valuation of near $300 billion. Analysts also forecast the sector could essentially exceed the $1 trillion mark in the coming years. Ripple's SBI also essentially intend to position RLUSD as a core offering in this evolving space by focusing on compliance and enterprise essentially grade. In the US, they're essentially being custody services are being provided through BNY Mellon, which is incredibly to have BNY Mellon backing you. And in Japan, they're going to be essentially backed by SBI, which is even better in the Japanese market space. Honestly, Ripple is day by day going to be dominating this market space going forward. So, I mean, today was, in my opinion, a great day because, one, Jerome Powell on his final ever Jackson Hole event coming out and essentially saying there's a possibility of a rate cut in September and not blaming everything on Trump regarding tariffs for why he's standing back. So it seems like Trump's administration, one by one, picking out the Fed members and trying to replace them has put pressure on Jerome Powell to do a rate cut. Two, on paper, the Ripple case completely going away, which is the final, essentially, nail and coffin on the Ripple case. Three, the essentially Grayscale is essentially applying for an XRP ETF. Four, in September, we get a rate cut and essentially a rate cut happening and the Clarity Act happening in September. It's just going to be a very good blast-off situation. If we don't get if we get rate cuts in September, the market's going to react in a positive way because it has to, unless we get some weird bad news, which we shouldn't do. Also, the Clarity Act. If we don't get a blast-off straight away after the Clarity Act is passed and signed into law, then don't be phased in any sort of a way. It just means the market's preparing for the next leg up at all. Remember what I said to everybody 3 years ago, which was essentially the last stage for all of you is going to be frustration. You're going to go through the stage of, happy, sad, fed up, and so on. But the last stage, I said to everyone 3 years ago, is going to be frustration. Don't ever let frustration get to you. And I know in the past few days, some people were definitely feeling frustrated on XRP, on XLM, on XDC, on Solana, on Cardano, on Ethereum, whatever you were holding, you were feeling frustrated on. But don't forget the end goal. The end goal essentially has always been going towards utility. And we've come so far. For you to get frustrated or walk away makes absolutely no sense. We've come so far. We're getting close to a very big regulation we've always needed inside the crypto space, which was clarity, which we're getting in September. And if we get rate cuts, even better. On that note, of all the positive things that have happened today and are going to be happening going forward, we have also reached the endings of tonight's live. This was episode 359 of the CMF Live. The CMF stands for Cryptonaut Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, which is the next episode of this live is going to be Monday at 10 p.m. And on tonight's live, we talked about Ripple's RLUSD launching in Japan through SBI. We talked about essentially on tonight's live regarding the final coffin, essentially final nail and coffin on the Ripple case on paper. We talked about also on tonight's live regarding the matters of XRP Grayscale, XRP essentially 21 shares, ETFs. We talked about on tonight's live also regarding Russia getting involved in certain cryptocurrencies because they feel like getting left behind. We went through SBI news regarding tokenizing the Japanese market space, essentially making it 24/7, adding that liquidity factor towards the market space. We talked about Pennsylvania introducing a very odd law. We went through news on tonight's live regarding also essentially if anybody's an iPhone user to straight away update your iPhones due to essential vulnerability regarding cryptocurrency wallets. We went through news Van Eck also launching, essentially trying to launch some sort of an ETF staking liquid capabilities for Solana. We went through news regarding BNB now being added to Rackbank alongside Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana to be offered to essentially the citizens of the UAE. We also went through news on tonight's live regarding the Swiss National Bank investing up to $38 million into MicroStrategy. We went through news regarding Philippines getting involved in some sort of a crypto reserve for their country as well. We also went through news, the biggest one essentially knowing, which is Jerome Powell giving an indication of a rate cut finally happening. And that's why the market has reacted in a positive manner it has. And obviously XRP reacted even more positive because the case is done on paper for life. We have come to the endings of this live. Let's go to the comment section, obviously, before we do leave. And I just want to say, honestly, thank you so much to everybody who has liked, retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, if you watch this on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone who's also liked essentially this live as well on YouTube. If you haven't, please like, please retweet this live. And if you subscribed and followed me during this live, thank you so much and welcome to the CMF. Let's go to the comment section before we do leave. Night Miles and CMF. Let's go, Pablo. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Good night, Miles and CMF. Such good news. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. Free forever. See you on Monday same time as usual. Absolute great day. Great live. As always, take care, Miles and CMF. Ray, let's go. See you on Monday same time as usual. Have a great weekend, CMF. Miles. See you on Monday. See you on Monday, Orvin as well. Good night, Miles, and good night, CMF. See you on Monday night. See you on Monday, Funky Brother. Ray, let's go. Good night, Miles, and all CMF. Great live and news. Have a great weekend. Let's go, JP. See you on Monday as well, brother. Have a great weekend as well. Have a brilliant weekend. Let's go, Funky Brother. The finish line is in sight. Keep going, family. Let's go, Ian. Facts. Great job as always, Miles. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Let's go, Carlos. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Thanks again. Thanks, Miles. I know I was late on tonight, but I'll watch it again tomorrow, mate. Have a good evening, mate, and weekend. Let's go, Addy. See you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Have a great weekend as well. Good night, Miles and family. Great live. Many thanks and a great weekend. See you on Monday. Ian, have a great weekend as well. See you on Monday as well. Great show, great news. Night all, Susie. Let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual, Susie. Thanks, Miles and CMF. Thank you and have a great weekend. Let's go, Mike. Have a great weekend as well, brother. Truly a great day. Thank you for a great live, Miles. See you tomorrow, Jason. Let's go. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Do you think it is a good idea to have 50% of RLUSD and 50% of XRP for our portfolios? RLUSD is a stable coin. You only go towards RLUSD if you're planning on selling or holding some sort of cash reserves in a digital format. A great job as always, Miles. Have a great weekend. Let's go, Scott. See you on Monday, same time as usual, brother. Thank you, Miles. More positive news for XRP. I missed the Apple news. Much appreciated. Have a great weekend all. Let's go, Shelly. See you on Monday, same time as usual as well. Regarding the Apple news, please update your iPhones. If you came into the live late, please go to your phone settings on your iPhones and see if there's an update by Apple and update it straight away, because there's a new hack going around that could make your iPhones, essentially compromised in that manner. You don't even have to click on links. You could just become compromised. So update your iPhones if you already haven't. If there is no update in your settings on your iPhones, then that means your iPhone has automatically updated already. On your Monday long. Let's go, Jason. Thanks for your dedication to your family. Great life. Good night, Miles. Let's go, Comatose. I'll see everybody on Monday, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great weekend. I love you all. See you on Monday, same timing as usual for episode 360 of the CMF Live. We've actually reached episode 360. That's incredible. 5 more episodes. We've done 1 year. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Everybody have a great weekend. Love you all. Like, comment, share, retweet, follow. Even though we've been doing this for 3 years, but we only started counting episodes 2 years after. Thanks for your dedication. See you on Monday, same time as usual. Everybody have a great weekend. Love you all. Like, comment, share, retweet.